Starliner Media. Starliner Media presents Music Night at the Majestic with your host, Michael Boswell.
All right, it's time once again for Music Night at the Majestic, and with us tonight, Rosie Flores. Rosie, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's great to talk to you. I first became aware of you, as probably most people east of the Mississippi, with the video for Crying Over You. Now, obviously, your story began way before that. So, let's first talk about how you got started with music and what led up to that point, and then we'll go from there.
What got me started in music was listening to the radio a lot in the car and in the kitchen. I was listening to all the, basically back in those days, I was born in 1950, so by around 1953, when I was just starting to, my ears were attracted to songs by, the standards. So you had Ella Fitzgerald was on there, and Nat King Cole, and Frank Sinatra, and my parents were really into that. And then along came Brenda Lee in the 50s, and Elvis, and Jerry Lee, and Buddy Holly, and me and my kid brother. Well, he was older than me by a year and a half. We started singing along. My dad started recording us when we were, oh gosh, I guess as early as 5.5, 6. And you can actually hear one of those recordings on my Rockabilly Philly CD. One of the recordings.
I'm going to sit right down and write myself a letter.
That's right. And so, that kind of got me into music and loving recording and loving singing. And I can remember, when nobody was looking, I would go into my mother's room and use her scarves and dance in front of her she had a really big mirror in her bedroom, and I would act out songs, and it's like, uh-oh. We have a budding little entertainer here. But yeah, I did that because I loved it and it was fun, and I just kept going through high school and started my first band. And my dad contributed to getting us a bunch of gear, took us to the music store and got the full deal: drums, bass, PA, guitar picks, guitar cords, guitar straps, bass drums, amps, the whole deal. And so I never turned back after that. Would you mind? I got to get a glass of water.
Sure thing.
I had one, but here it is. It's right here. It's my pink lemonade. So yeah, that's how I got started. And sorry, allergies. It never stopped, and I just this rose kept on blooming, and she's still blooming.
Now you were actually kind of focused on dance,
Well, when I was
as well as music, correct?
Well, when I was 6 years old, my mom put me in dance class because, like I said, I was an entertainer. I had to do the whole thing, and I was kind of like, if I'd been born in the vaudeville age, I would have probably been a vaudeville star because I love to do it all. And so yeah, I took tap and ballet early on, and then I picked it up. I didn't pick it up again until I was about 15, and I took classes again, and then I picked it up again when I was like 28, and I studied with Joe Tremaine in Hollywood and had, Jamie Lee Curtis in my class, and, a lot of, Juice Newton, and a lot of kind of celebrities in those days. And like, I was like professional. And there was also a dance class in San Diego in 77 called Stage 7. And I studied there like 14 dance classes a week. I think that's why I have a pretty good figure for my age, is because I taught my muscles how to be tight and stretch and So I do a lot of I do a lot of stretching and yoga work, Pilates, trying to stay. It just makes me feel good, and it just happens to keep me in shape. But yeah, I highly recommend putting your kids in dance school. Is a good basis for health, I think.
Yeah. Tell me this. You were integral in the California country scene in the 80's. What was that whole scene like, the Palomino and all the folks that you were playing with and hanging out with and such?
What was it like? Just really a lot of fun. There was a lot of young, very, very talented musicians because it was, people in LA are like serious players and everybody's like pretty well studied and um it was like being around a lot of really young professionals and the band members I would use and get to play around other play the palomino with other artists like Jan Brown. Along came Dale Watson, James Infield, Jim Lauderdale, Buddy Miller, Lucinda Williams. We were all just babies, but everybody already kind of had their deal going. They had their style going, and we all kind of took our took our music really seriously, and we were all trying to make it. We all wanted that pie in the sky, record deal. And we started getting signed. You know, I got signed to Warner Brothers Reprise and out of Nashville, and Lucinda was on Rough Trade, and then a bunch of us got on High Tone Records, a label out of Oakland, California. Dave Alvin. Uh, I mean, you can read a lot about that history if you go to the Country Music Hall of Fame, because there's an exhibit now called the Western Edge, and it's all the history of California country going all the way back to Rose Maddox and even before that, like uh, Joe and Rosalie Maphis, even,
Mhm.
Buck Owens, Merle
Johnny
Haggard.
Collins and Wynn Stewart and all those folks.
Everybody that made a big difference on up tour. It started getting cool with the Flying Burrito Brothers. All
Mhm.
their suits are on display. And then you get to the back wall, you'll see little Rosie Flores' guitar and my little vest that Emmy Lou gave me and that was worn by her and Linda Ronstadt. And there was a Graham Parsons connection there. I'm not sure how that worked, but yeah, you need to go there and check it out. It's it's a really good tribute to all the Palomino days back in there and the country punk. Even my band, the Screaming Sirens, has a photo in there.
Yeah. Well, one thing I like, Rosie, is the fact that the friends that you made during those Palomino days
Uh,
appear on various records of yours. So Jan Brown and Jim Lauderdale and those folks, appear on different albums.
well, we were all friends. We were all in the same uh, little corral together.
Mhm.
We did things together outside of, we hung out with each other. And so it was easy to go, I'm making a record, come sing with me, you know. So that, and we were all happy to play on each other's records. And the only one I didn't get on any of my early records, which I really regretted, was Lucinda Williams. And, but we were produced by the same some of the same people and recorded at the same place, and we hung out together a lot, but we just never we had to this date anyway. It doesn't mean it'll never happen, because she's still a dear friend of mine. But yeah, yeah. I mean, what else do you want to know about all that?
Well, the your how did Pete Anderson come to produce your self-titled debut?
Well, he was producing and had a couple of big hits with Dwight Yoakam, and I knew Pete way before he was producing Dwight. I actually hired Pete to play pedal steel guitar in one of my early Palomino bands when I was probably 20. I probably was 27 or 28, and he came up to me and he said, "Hey, I'm learning how to play pedal steel, and I need a band to practice in. Would you hire me?" And I said, "Sure." And so that particular band was really cool. We had Stanley on sax and harmonica. I'm trying to remember who the drummer was at this point, but I ended up, I worked with that band for a couple of months, and all the songs that I was writing back then. Um, And I kinda decided, well, it's not rockabilly enough for me, and I wanted to go in more of a rockabilly direction, and, so I let the band go. So I guess in a sense, you could say I fired Pete Anderson.
Take that, Pete.
No, I love Pete. He was a great
Pete's been was on our show,
he was a
previously.
great he was a great guy to get to know and work with, and, he was very expensive. Um Unfortunately, the record we made together didn't make a lot of money, so, but that wasn't his fault. He made probably the best record of my career next to the last record I made, which is called Simple Case of the Blues, which is my very favorite record I've ever recorded to date. Although I'm working on one now with the Talisman, and I'm working with Ed Stacy, I'm the producer of the Ramones, with this
Mhm.
amazing band I have here in Austin called the Talisman. So when this record comes out, it might be my new favorite record. But yeah, Pete Anderson, he taught me a lot. He taught me a lot about arranging and producing.
Mhm.
Um, he's very smart. He's an amazing guitar player. I've even stole a couple of his licks. And, so yeah, it was cool. And I knew Dwight back in those days. We were friends, and hung out together a little bit. And yeah, it was that whole early country, LA country scene. The Blasters were
Mhm.
happening, Rank and File, Los Lobos was playing in the scene. Um, there was a lot of cool punk rock bands that we, would go listen to, and it was an exciting time. There was a lot of clubs. Um, there was, a plethora of great guitar players like John Jorgensen
Mhm.
and Jeff Ross, and you know, the guy that I consider my best producer ever was a guy named Greg Leese, who stood by my side and held my hand through years, um, playing pedal steel and guitar. It taught me a lot about phrasing, and he we used to ride together to this gig we used to play, called the Swallows in San Juan Capistrano, and he played a lot of music for me on those long trips. And so yeah, it was like Greg was my mentor, and he really cared a lot about me, and that was the first time in my life that I had met anybody that gave a damn about me as an artist. And so I felt like I always felt like he saw that I was talented enough to nurture, and they were just great friends, and he's still amazing. He works with Jackson Brown and 1,000 other number one top of the mark artists.
Greg seems, if his credit list is like just like a who's who.
Absolutely. And I'm one of the who's. I was one of the first who's. I don't get a lot of credit in his
Well,
writing
Greg actually,
abilities. I really was
produced,
one of the
co-produced 3 of your records
Yeah, yeah. He not
back
only
in the high tone era of
Yeah, but
your.
not only did he produced, with Dusty Wakeman, but he played amazingly and sang. Like, I listened to those records a lot, and his lap steel and his pedal steel and his guitar playing and his it blows my mind. And I get tears in my eyes when I listen to some of that stuff because it's so good, And I'll have to say, just yesterday, my I have a jazz group as well that I sing jazz standards and some originals with. We're called Blue Moon Jazz, but we're going to put a record out early next year, I hope. And anyway, my guitar player, who's phenomenal, he's been studying jazz since he was 8 years old. I mean, he's well-rounded. His name's Jim Stringer. He can play anything. But he's an exceptional master of jazz. And he told me just yesterday that he really enjoyed my singing on that first Pete Anderson album, and that would be one of his Desert Island records.
Oh, wow.
So I was like,
There's
wow.
a compliment for you.
Wow. He says, you're my favorite singer. He loves my voice. So that's really encouraging to hear from somebody that I admire so much,
Absolutely. Well, one thing that is the hallmark of your records, and it shows just how diverse your musical interests are and how knowledgeable
Diverse, yeah.
you are, about each of the different styles. Because your records will have a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And sometimes when an artist will do that, it doesn't flow. But with you, all the styles so well and are so passionate about them, the songs flow from one to the next. So you can have a straight up honky tonk song and, an atmospheric, standard, on there, or a jump blues or a soul song and back to rockabilly song. And it's all seamless because while they're all those styles, they are also distinctively you.
When I get together with, whoever I'm with in the studio, we really try to pull a thread through all of that. And really the thread is it's all American roots music. It's stuff from, influences from the 50s through, I don't know, maybe even the 40s through the 80s or something, or, I have, I have so much love for all the different genres that I grew up with. Like I was telling you, I was listening to Frank Sinatra and Nat King Cole and Ella Fitzgerald on the black and white TV when I was just a kid. I know I don't look that old because I don't let my hair go gray, but I really am that age. And I just have a deep heart for all of the music I grew up with. It's all love and memories. And, I fell in love with, the whole, it took me a while to fall in love with country because I kind of went from standards to rockabilly to the Beach Boys to the Beatles, and then after the Beatles, and I was hearing stuff like Ringo Cutting, they're going to put me in the movies. I'm like, oh, that guy Buck Owens, he writes cool songs too.
Yeah,
I'm
yes,
going to
he
make a
does.
right-hand turn here and start listening to Tammy Wynette, who became my favorite singer, and, Johnny Cash. And, that I just follow the rabbit hole and learn about good, well-written songs and amazing guitar players and singers and all that kind of stuff. And there's so much good music. There's so much good American music out there. And then the British invasion came, which turned me on to blues. So by the time that happened, when I got turned on to blues through the British invasion, that's when I picked up the guitar, and I was a teenager, and I sat down with the guys in my high school, and my brother, and we would sit around on one of our parents' couch, and I was allowed to hang out because I played guitar. Yeah, bring your sister over. She plays guitar. She's cool. So I would go over there and I would learn a lot. And then before you know it, I started my first all girl band when I was 16, and that's when my dad helped me get the gear. And so, I know that also it's hard to define an artist if they, is she jazz? Is she country? Is she rockabilly? Is she blues? Yes, all of that. And I kind of, you think about it and think about Linda Ronstadt's career. She did everything too, and she's always been one of my biggest influences. And I've always wished I could had her voice. But watching her go in any direction she wanted to. And by the way, there is an album in Spanish in the works. But like she did, but like I said, I don't have her voice, but I have the heart and the soul to walk through those doors and make music, and my fans dig it, they follow me, and so it's fun.
Well, you are an exceptional guitar player. And
Well, thank you. I don't know that I deserve the word exceptional, but
okay, well, in my humble opinion, yeah, because all your records, yeah,
thank you.
the song, yeah, your songwriting, you have a great knack for coming up with a really cool riff and building a good groove that drives the songs
Thank
on
you.
it. Uh, then you add in the fact that the different styles that you
Mhm.
like, you incorporate those things. No different than Pete being a blues fan would
Yeah.
incorporate little blues licks
Yeah.
in stuff he was doing with Dwight. Uh, yeah, you do that as well in so many styles. I mean, from surf to blues to honky tonk. Yeah, you've got all of that in there. That said, who are some of the guitar players that have been your biggest influences?
Number one, Jeff Beck from early on. Uh, when I discovered the Yardbirds, it made me want to play lead guitar. And I was already playing it in my little all girl band when I was 16, but I was just kind of, we were playing Jefferson Airplane, Cream, uh, a little bit of Hendrix, but I would just play whatever I could to try to fill in those songs. And I was just trying to come up with parts. And my brother was teaching me here these are the places you can jam and, and try and, so it opened up the vocabulary of how I can improvise on the guitar. And so I started building a vocabulary, but I didn't really fall in love with tone and try and, like find vibrato and tone until I started listening to the Yardbirds and then through all of Jeff Beck's career and everything. I mean, I can listen to his songs and make me bring tears to my eyes now. And I, in fact, cried for a half an hour the day I found out he passed. But I wonder if I have, do I still have that there? I don't know where I moved it, but I did have it on my little shelf there. Uh, when I was 16, me and my brother went to LA and we kind of snuck in somehow or another. We got into this show, and it must have been around, it was 60 something, and he was playing, it wasn't the Palladium. Anyway, we got in, and I was such a fan. I think I was only 16. I could have been 17. And I climbed up the rafters and I had my little point and shoot. And I stood right in front of him and I went, bam. And I took the picture. And then this guy came running after me, this, roadie guy. And I was really quick on my feet in those days, so I got away. I was like a little sparrow, you know. So, but I do have this picture of him, and I actually showed it to him years later. And then I got a chance when I was 21. I got a chance to go backstage and meet him and actually play his guitar. And I was playing Jeff's Boogie, and he was like, whoa, you know, because I said, can you show me a couple of licks on the guitar? And I was hanging out backstage with his roadies and band and stuff, and he walks in the room and he goes, "Why don't you show me what you know first?" You know. So I started playing Jazz Boogie, and he threw his hands up in the air and went and grabbed Tim Bogart's bass and started jamming with me. So here I am, jamming with Jeff Beck, and I'm 21 years old, and I'm like, "This is so cool," you know. And then this tall, blonde, model-looking woman walks in, and the attention was diverted immediately away from me. She was a tall, beautiful blonde. So I put the guitar down and waited about 20 minutes and went up to him and said, "So, hey, Jeff, can you show me something on the guitar?" And he goes, "What for? You know it all." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll remember that forever."
Exactly. Now, many years later, you got to play with Chuck Berry at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yep, I
What
played
was
with
that like?
Gary. That was really cool. Oh, I have a picture I can show you over here. Uh, I had one of those Facebook photo books made, and here's a cool picture of me and Chuck and his wife at the Rock and Roll
No.
Hall of Fame, and that was an amazing time because I got to, you know, be on such a great stage with the likes of Merle Haggard and Dave Alvin and David Johansen. I got to meet Earl Slicks, which was really cool because we've become really good friends. And you know, there was the last song. We all got up on stage and we got to play the last couple numbers with Chuck. You know, and I have a really cool picture somewhere where he's pointing at me because I went up to him and I said, "Is this the right chord for the intro?" And he didn't say anything, but he kind of went, like, "You got it," you know. So that was my only interaction with him, you know, aside from getting my picture taken with him. But yeah, he was a hero of mine. I think the first lead my brother showed me was you know, um, what's the name of the song? Johnny Be Good.
Yeah.
His wife was a doll. I feel sorry for her that she lost him. But, you know, we move on, don't we?
Yep. Well, throughout your career, you've had a chance to open and play with a lot of different people, diverse people.
Yep.
What are some of those gigs that you remember the most?
Well, a couple of my favorites were the ones that really helped me a lot. One was Elvin Bishop, and because I would be like this solo acoustic opening act in San Diego, and there was a really cool concert stage, and I'd had a bit of a name from a band called Rosie and the Screamers, so I had, you know, I was quite popular with that band. But um, one promoter, a guy named Tony Campman, asked me if I could play solo because they were looking for somebody solo to open for Rick Danko and Paul Butterfield blues band. And I said, "Oh yeah, I totally play acoustic." So that was the first time I did that, and it went over really well. And he kept hiring me, so I kind of got. That's how I got started playing with a lot of big name acts as a nobody. Virtually, I was only popular in San Diego, and I was really popular there. We had a good following, but that was it, you know. And so then I met Elvin Bishop's band, and they uh, said, "You got to go on tour with us." And So Tony, booked all the dates for me, and I traveled with them, and that was the first time I was on the road, was with the Elvin Bishop Band. And it was really fun because they took me to New Orleans and turned me on to all the cuisine of New Orleans, and showed me the ropes. And I'll never forget, they were so kind to me. My purse, I left my purse backstage, and somebody went back there and stole all my money. And while I was in the audience watching their show, and so the guys formed a circle around me, and they said, "Look, we want you to know that we really care about you, and we've put some money together, and we chipped in, so you can have your money back, and let this be a lesson to you. Don't leave your purse backstage." So I'm like, oh, that was wean of them, So that was my first experience, being on the road with professional guys. And then David Lindley's band, LYOX, David Lindley, who was the slide guitar player known mostly for playing with on Dr. My Eyes with Jackson Brown, and phenomenal. We lost him, I guess it was last year. But he, really took to me as a guitar player, and so they took me to New York for the first time. I played the Roxy with them. They recorded a single with me. Ian Wallace, who's their drummer, produced the record for me. He's no longer with us, sadly. We lost him too. But he was on one of my records, the jazzier record I did, Speed of Sound. I did that record when I was in Nashville with Rick Vito producing, who's a phenomenal guitar player. So yeah, I did a few recordings while I was in Nashville, and lived there for 7 years, and then moved back to Austin. So I've been living here for, gosh, it's been, close to 20 years now this time. I love Austin. It's just, this town was, we were made for each other, this town. We really were.
Well, you've also had a chance to write with some amazing songwriters throughout your career.
I wrote with Diane Clark and John Prine. That's pretty amazing.
I'd say, yeah. What was was it like writing with those two?
It was like being at songwriting school in a way, except for with Guy, it was more, I learned, it was like crafty, like it was more crafty, like song crafting, and with John, it was just, let's hang out and drink some whiskey and write a song, and it was two different experiences completely. And the song that I wrote with Prine hasn't actually been finished, because we were going to write a bridge to it, and I've just recently found the notes from that night, and I unfortunately gave him the cassette of that night, because I did have a cassette on it, and I don't know where that cassette is. Who knows? Because he was working with Howie Epstein, bass player of Tom Petty's band, was producing him, and they said, we're making a duets record. Can we hear that song? Well, it wasn't complete, so we didn't end up putting it on that duets record. But so I don't know if that ended up in Howie's place, or if Prine took it back with him, or what. But sadly, I lost it. I wish I hadn't given it to him. But do you know who James McMurtry is? He's a songwriter here. He took it. He took what I had, what I could remember, and he finished it and did a whole different thing with it, which is cool. But then now I found more lyrics, so I'm going to finish it a different way, so it can be two different songs now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've co-written a lot with my friend Rachel Gladstone. We've been writing since the very early days when I was opening for Oh God, I'm blanking on the what's the name of the guy, the fiddle player from the East Coast? Tall. He makes fiddles. Um, Jewish guy, tall. Ah,
Yeah,
he was.
I know who you're talking about, but
There's a
the name escapes
documentary
me.
on him too. I just
Yeah.
watched. But anyway, I was opening for him up in San Francisco. Met Rachel, and we were like, "Let's write together." And so Rachel Gladstone and I have a writing team called Gladflow, and we've written a lot of songs together, and we're trying to keep on keeping on, you know. So she's like my favorite person to write with, really, you know.
Mhm.
But there's so many great writers here in town, you know. There's Bonnie Whitmore and Betty Sue. I've co-written with Jimmy Dale Gilmore. I'd like to write with him some more, or his son Colin. Um, you know, I've written with Dave Alvin. Um, I want to write with Alejandro Escovedo. Big fan of his.
Mhm.
So there's still a lot more writing to do, but right now, in fact, today, this morning, I was back to working on the book that I'm writing. Stories, little stories from my past. And I've been trying to work on this book for 15 years. Like everybody thinks I'm jumping on the bandwagon, but you know what? I was the first one that started writing a book because it's just fun to tell stories, and I'm always talking about the stories, and people keep saying, "You need to write a book." So I started doing that, you know.
Yeah. And someday you'll get it done.
I want to get it done. Like, I want to really get it close to finish before 2024. So, November and December, I'm trying to not play a lot of gigs so I can do this.
Yeah. I'll tell you, you mentioned Simple Case of the Blues, and that record you did with Charlie Sexton and Kenny Vaughan
And Dave Rowe.
and Dave Rowe. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Dave Rowe and Kenny Vaughan. Dave Rowe, who's recently passed, sadly, was a bass player that worked with Johnny Cash for over 10 years. Phenomenal player and person. And him and Kenny had a blues band that they played with, like a blues jam night. Or maybe it wasn't a blues jam night. It was more that they played with their little blues thing. And they invited me if I wanted to come and sit in. And so I did. And they were like, wow, Texas has been good for your blues. And they said, we should make a record with you. And we have a studio. And why don't you come down? We won't charge you anything. We'll make you a record for you. So they got me started, you know, really taking my blues side seriously. And I was able to make all the basic tracks with them. And um, you know, just because I had sax players and singers and people like that I wanted to use here in Austin. I just took it into Arlen Studios with Jacob Skiba and Charlie Sexton helping me produce the overdubs for it. So Charlie had a huge hand in getting those uh, those arrangements together for the overdubs.
Mhm.
And he added, you know, some percussion, and he played some guitar riffs and some piano, if I remember right, too. So he was wonderful to work with. I'd love to do another blues record with that same team.
Yeah. Well, you really set the tone with you and with the opener, "Love Don't Love Nobody," the old Roy Brown tune.
Oh man, I've always loved that song. I got that record when I was living in LA at this place called Music and Memories. And I knew he had written songs for Elvis. So I was like, I got to hear more, you know. And that was always my favorite cut on the record.
Yeah.
What a great
Well,
song.
I like how atmospheric "Enemy Hands" is.
That was written by Dave Rowe, actually. And yeah, that came out really groovy. I love that. And I was glad I was able to record something that he wrote. He sent me a couple of songs, and that was the one that spoke to me the most.
Yeah. And I'm gonna guess that you and Kenny had fun on
Mhm.
Teenage Rampage.
A lot of fun. I have fun playing it with Michael Molnar now, the guy that's in my Austin band. But it was cool. I had this riff and I had it on my phone, and I made up the riff so that I could use it to on this little radio show. Like I think I did I can't remember if I did some radio show on it. You're listening to blah 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 blah, K something something something, and I just said damn doodle 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 bam bam, and I put that little riff there, and I went, that's kind of a cool riff, and so I kept it on my phone, and I worked on it to the point where I did the B section, and I sent it to Kenny the night after we cut the first day, and I said, "Can you come up with a bridge for this?" And he said, "I got a bridge, let's cut it." So we did. And he did that chromatic walk down thing, which is so perfect in that.
Mm-hmm.
He's phenomenal. I
Yeah.
just really hope I can work with him again. He's so busy with Marty Stewart. But yeah, and one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. And I have worked with him. I produced a couple of songs on Laura Cantrell. So I got to play guitar with him again on her song. Her album's called Like a Rose. And yeah, so that's the last time I worked with Kenny and Dave Rowe
Yeah.
together.
Well, you mentioned tone before in one of the tracks that is stuck with me on it, and of course now that I've said it, my mind goes blank. But the on Working Girl's Guitar.
Sounds like, you mean that particular song, or?
No, there's a track on there that I can't. Love Must Have Passed Me By.
Oh, that was a very different one. That's like a very different sounding song on that album. Really, it really belongs on a country album. But and I love that song. It was really fun coming up with the guitar parts to it. I'm very proud of that guitar playing on that particular song. I pulled it out somehow. I worked on it real hard. But anyway, that song was written by Bobby V.
Mm-hmm.
And his son was the bass player on that session. So he sent me a bunch of Bobby's songs, some demos and stuff. And that's just the one that was, that spoke to me, because it's very true, sadly.
Yeah. Now, how did you work up your version of my While My Guitar Gently Weeps on that album?
Well, I know that I wanted to do that song because I've always loved that song. And I thought at first that I was going to do it very much like, the Clapton and Harrison version. And I just thought I'll just do the best I can. But when I was working on it late one night, I was practicing it on my acoustic. And I was like, you know what? This giving it kind of a swing thing is kind of cool. And I just started singing it, and I'm like, I'm going to make this my own, and it just kind of happened that way one night where I was just playing on the acoustic, and the guys loved it. They were like, oh yeah. So I do play the song once in a while. It's fun.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, Rosie, I know we're a bit past our time here. There's a lot of stuff
Oh,
we didn't get to, so hopefully you'll have time to come back again. We can get to all the things that we didn't get to talk about this time around.
well, we sure did talk about a lot. I really don't know anything else to say about me other than, come back and talk to me after my book comes out and the new records. How about that?
That'll work.
We
Then we can
got
get
a
into
jazz
the
record
whole.
coming out, The Talisman, and a book. So,
Then we'll cover the whole Rockabilly Philly thing.
oh well, yeah, Rockabilly Philly. That was a fun record to make.
Yeah, so we'll catch up with that on your next visit. How's that?
That sounds perfect.
All right. Well,
Okay.
Rosie, I want to thank you for taking the time to join us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And hello to everybody out there that's listening to my music. Thank you so much. I appreciate the following, and find me on, all the YouTube, MyTube, Facebook, all that stuff. I'm around.
There you go. Well, we've had your website and social media scrolling across the screen throughout the show, so folks can track you down and get your music and hear all the
Cool.
good stuff.
Sounds like a plan.
All right. Well, on that note, Rosie, we'll bring this one to a close. Everybody, thank you for watching. Have a good night.
Bye, Michael.
This has been Music Night at the Majestic with Michael Boswell. If you enjoyed this edition of Music Night at the Majestic, follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and at musicnight.net. Music Night at the Majestic is a copyright production of Starliner Media. Any use of the accounts and descriptions of this program, its audio or visual content, without the express written consent of Starliner Media is prohibited. Thank you for joining us this evening. We'll see you next time for Music Night at the Majestic. This is your announcer speaking. Starliner Media.